What do you say to people who believe there's only one soulmate for each of us in each lifetime?
Well, when you were in Rome in the early periods where you only lived to be 18 to 23, that probably was okay. But if you're going to live into your 80s, the chances are that something's going to happen, either divorce or a death, and you're going to have more than one relationship. So I think as we live longer and we have more experience, I think the likelihood of only having one person is probably not very likely.
When you think of the age of widowhood, average is 57.
Yes,
It's a lot of years on your own.
that's right. So multiple relationships and people who are long-lived is probably the norm, not the exception.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan Show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. We have Doctors Gloria Horsley and Frank Powers on the show with us today. My friend Gloria is a licensed marriage and family therapist, clinical nurse specialist, and the author of 10 books on grief and loss. She's also the co-founder of the Open to Hope Foundation and host of the award-winning Open to Hope TV show and podcast. Frank is a licensed psychologist, former professor, and relationship expert who worked alongside the legendary sexuality pioneers Masters and Johnson, as well as Harville Hendricks, known as a couples therapy innovator. Together, they've written Open to Love, The Secrets of Senior Dating, a heartfelt and insightful guide for anyone seeking love later in life. Many of my clients hope to find love after years of being single or losing a spouse. So we're going to be exploring everything from embracing a dating mindset to healing from loss and more. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now, let's go talk with Gloria and Frank. Gloria and Frank, welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled to have you both join us today.
It's so great to see you and to be on the show. We're excited.
Yeah, it's great to be seen.
Frank, last time Gloria and I were together, we were on the loose in Manhattan at Christmas time.
Oh,
And
two
we
lovely ladies in Manhattan at
And we
Christmas.
didn't even get arrested, Gloria. We
No, it
behaved.
didn't. It was amazing. Nothing like New York at Christmas time.
Exactly. And I've gotten to be on your show, your podcast several times, and even got to be a guest on your cable TV show. So I am so honored to finally have you, give me the grace to be on my show too. So thanks. And Frank, she talks good about you behind your back.
Isn't that wonderful? I mean, that's the reason I love this lady. I always get good press with her.
Oh, good, good. Well, you guys call yourselves the golden dating doctors. Why?
Well, the dating doctors was taken by someone, so we had to add something. So we've got, okay, we'll add golden.
Because we are in our golden years, and our big message is saying, hey, it's never too late to get into a relationship.
Right. Yeah, I love that. When I saw that, you have co-authored this book, Open to Love, which is the success of senior dating. And I was thrilled to get this copy from you in person. I was just mentioning that I carried it back on my carry-on luggage when I got back from New York. So I'm thrilled to have it.
It's a little light reading. Yes.
Well, you
Yeah.
can put it in your carry-on luggage. for sure.
That's right. So tell us about what motivated you to write this book.
Well, 4 years ago, my husband of 60 years died of a staph infection after back surgery. This was like his 12th surgery. So I've been through a lot with him for the years. And so I was a widow. I counseled a lot of widows in my therapy practice. And now there I was, a widow, and learning a lot. And I decided that since I gave people advice that they should get some help in therapy, that I would do it myself. So I went to Acara in Palo Alto, California, and I said to them, I need to be in some kind of a group. So they put me, or individual counseling, they put me in individual counseling and in a group. Well, while I was in the group, I went to Arizona to stay with my sister, and I was on Zoom in Palo Alto with a group. And one of the gentlemen in the group played golf, and I'm a big golfer. And he said he couldn't get any tea time. So I said, wow, I can get some because I would belong to a club. So when I got back to Palo Alto, that was one of the places where you didn't have to mask up. I ended up playing golf with Steve. And I got into a relationship pretty early because we were playing golf every single day. He ended up
Golfing through grief.
golfing through grief. He ended up moving in with me, and this was in the spring, and I was with him till Christmas time, and we had a big event in Hawaii with my family,
And he ghosted you.
27 people, and he ghosted me and said he left, and he had moved in with me. He said, "Your key's on the counter. I've left. This is too big for me. You're, too much. I can't handle it." So I was in Hawaii.
Best thing ever happened for me.
Yeah. I was in Hawaii and I had COVID and I was so hurt and so angry. I decided that I was going to get my thoughts together and write a book about being a widow because I'd learned so much. So I decided to put a chapter in on online dating. And because I didn't know anything about online dating, and I went to just on the internet and looked around and found silver singles because at the time I was 80. And I went to Silver Singles, and Frank happened to be in Silver Singles in Arizona, where I was gonna go stay with my sister. And I had a meet up with another guy and then with Frank, and we've been together for 3 years.
Yeah, so after these two guys, I looked pretty good.
We had so much in common because Frank was a therapist, I was a therapist. We did share websites, so I knew he was also a sculptor, and he knew what I did, that I had a foundation, Open to Hope, and we didn't really spend a lot of time. Um, I don't like texting and spending a lot of time talking on the phone, so we didn't do any of that. And our meetup was just
It was
a
it was
meetup.
just magical because for the first time in all my experience with online dating, Gloria actually looked better in person than her profile picture. That was a first.
Frank, tell us what you told me before we started recording about your golf game. I asked you what you were shooting.
Well, one of the things that Gloria had in her profile was that she wanted a person that had a handicap and not a physical one, a golf handicap. So I had to go out and practice my golf so I could say, yes, my handicap is getting better.
Oh, I love it. Do you think that Phil was up in heaven orchestrating Frank showing up?
Well, he actually said to Gloria that she would find a relationship. I mean, he knew.
And I said, "No, no, no," and he said, "Yes, you will. You'll find another relationship."
Yes,
Was this when he was sick or just in normal
But he was sick. We
conversation?
knew that he was in a lot of trouble because he had a staph infection and they couldn't get his white blood count under control. And, they pretty much said, that he was on his way out. I think
he knew.
just
He
knew it.
knew.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Did you think it was the morphine that was talking?
I don't think so. I think he was pretty lucid, I'll have to say, considering the all in all, but I guess he knew me well.
He loved Gloria a great deal from what I understand from everybody, and he wanted her to be happy and knew that she was, not finished with relationships.
Yeah.
So he was okay with it, and, boy, he's pretty advanced guy.
Yeah. Well, from what I know of him, from what Gloria's told me, I agree. Everything I've heard, he was very advanced. One of my best girlfriends, her husband was dying of cancer, and he said something similar to what Phil said to you, Gloria. And he said, I'm going to send you a guy till we can be together in heaven again. And my girlfriend called me. She goes, I think it's the morphine. And I said, no.
Well, if he'd said we'll be together in heaven, that would be kind of tough because that would be like, wait for me. And Phil wasn't wait for me. He's like, you go, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I was talking to her and she said, she asked him, well, how will I know he's the one? And her husband said, well, look for the mermaid. She goes, look for the mermaid. And so she said, I knew it was the drugs then. So he passed. A few months later, a girlfriend fixed her up for a luncheon date with this guy who's a retired commercial airline pilot, and they went out to lunch, and then they had a dinner date the following week or something, and he said, "Would you like to see my plane? I have a hangar." And I'm hearing this story, and I'm thinking, is that kinda like, "You wanna see my Rembrandt? You wanna come up to the bedroom and see my Rembrandt?" But nevertheless, she says she goes to his hangar and painted on the tail of the plane was a mermaid.
Uh,
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. And he lived on Mermaid Cove Drive or something like that. And she's saying, "Okay." And then she married him a year later. So, yeah, stranger things have happened. You're my second friend that has had their husband say that to them, and then you end up in a new relationship. And how wonderful is that? Yeah. You talk a lot about senior dating in the book. How does that differ from junior dating?
well, we like to say early on in your relationship, those first relationships, you
When you're
oftentimes, yeah, when you're younger, you oftentimes look for somebody who you admire their qualities. Well, oftentimes when you admire your qualities, there are qualities that you don't have.
Yeah.
Like my husband was a real perfectionist, and I really admired that. And he was attention to detail. I really admired that. And we were very different. And the joke kind of is with therapy, you might try to find somebody that's different than you, and then you spend your life trying to make them more like you.
Start
So
change them.
yeah,
Be more
and
yeah.
so I would say for those senior relationships, we recognize in the very first of the book, know what's worked for you in the past and what hasn't. You know yourself now. You've been in a relationship, and now you may want to find somebody that's more like you.
Use your experience because you know what's worked for you in the past in relationships. You also know what hasn't worked for you. So if you make that list and list all the things that have worked in the past and those things that haven't, you're probably better off with the list that's worked,
Yeah.
not the one that hasn't.
Frank and I are just so similar.
Oh, yes.
And
We
my deceased husband and I wouldn't say we were similar at all. I'm the person who leaves the garage door open and, maybe leaves some shoes in the middle of the living room.
we're not compulsive at all. Yeah.
And so's Frank. so, so we have to make sure we have to run around and do
We need a lot of help. We're often help. We don't have to do everything ourselves.
Although I didn't know Phil before he passed, it seems to me that you 2 really have a lot of fun together as much as anything. Would you say that that's one of the most important components at this stage?
You 'cause you're gonna be spending a lot more time with one another than probably in past relationships. Certainly, I do. And, Gloria is the most fun playmate around, and I hope that I'm a fun playmate, and I do think it's really helpful if you enjoy activity together and you enjoy your time together
Important.
because you've got a lot of it
Yeah.
if you want it.
And you don't have those responsibilities you had
No.
before. You're not
You
gonna
don't
have
work,
kids, you don't have to buy a house, you don't have all that backstory and back history.
A lot of time for fun and games.
And a lot of forgiveness to each other. I think you learn that in life. A lot of compromise and, you know, Frank comes from divorce and I come from death both, so there's a difference too for him than there is for me.
Talk
Um,
about that. Talk to us about those differences.
Well, generally, I think people think of if you're a widow or a widower that you're just fine. But if you come from divorce, they say, "Well, I wonder why this person got a divorce. They're probably not good at relationships." And that's not necessarily true, but that is a stereotype that you hear quite often.
then divorcees don't get a lot of support. And, I think one thing that you need to do if you're going to be with a divorced person is you need to respect the fact that they did love the person that they divorced at one time, or they wouldn't have been with them.
Yeah.
And I think these,
And it is a loss. I mean, because no one gets married, I don't think, to get divorced. So you do feel like a failure and you do feel like something, is not happened well. So you do end up having to work pretty hard as a divorcee to get yourself feeling as, hey, you know what? I I know the reasons why this didn't work, and I still want a relationship, and I want to be in a relationship. And for divorced people, I think it's sometimes harder than if you had a deceased spouse.
When I was in the grief group with Steve, and then we started dating and we were together, and then he was living with me, it was probably maybe 5 months after Phil died. And people said to me, "Oh, how did you meet him?" And I said, "His wife died 2 days after my husband. And we met in a grief group." And everyone says, "Oh, oh, yeah, wonderful. Isn't that great that you found each other?" But if you say he's divorced, everyone's looking, I'm with Frank, he's divorced. And what's that all about? What's he know about this guy?
Your stigma, more of a stigma for divorcees in terms of feeling as though they are good at relationships. But if you're a deceased spouse, they don't question whether you were good at relationships.
Yeah.
Do you find with Gloria Frank that Phil's kinda on a pedestal with her and with the rest of their family? And I'm gonna ask you to talk about your kids and grandkids in a minute, Gloria. I know you have a bunch of them. But do you find I hear from my clients who are widows that say that their new partners sometimes feel like they have to compete with the deceased spouse. Do you guys find that? Frank, have you felt that?
We certainly was our experience that was harder for her daughters, I think, than her grandkids. And the daughters had more of a problem because they had a connection with their dad, and they don't necessarily want someone to come in and take that spot. So I do think it's taken at least 3 years for me to, uh, and I think for them to feel as though, "Hey, there's no competition. This was our dad, and this is our mom's new boyfriend."
I think that Frank's more rational than a lot of men would be because he's been a therapist for so many years, and he's had a lot of psychoanalysis himself because his dad died when he was 15. So he understands a lot in depth about how to deal with men, and a lot of your practice has been with men.
Oh, yeah, no.
So Frank, actually, when you say he gets put on a pedestal, I would say that you kind of put Phil on a pedestal. He really admires a lot of the
I
qualities
I
that
get Phil was a genius, and he was definitely a special guy.
yeah, and we dedicate the book to him, to Phil who made all things possible.
Yes. Yes.
I noticed that. My back to my friend with the captain with the mermaid on his tail, on the anniversary of her husband's death, the first anniversary of her husband's death, her new husband took her up in the air in his plane, and he said, "I thought you might want to be closer to Frank." His name was Frank too. "I thought you might be wanna be closer to Frank, and so let's go up in the clouds and say hi to him." I thought that was the sweetest thing ever.
That's fabulous, fabulous. And I think as a woman or a man being married to a divorcee, you have to realize again that Frank did love the women he was with and the women he has been with.
I feel like I got
Yeah.
something special from them, yeah.
Yeah, and at 81 years old, he'd been in, other relationships. So, and people are living. So, how do you compete with this? And people who have kids, they have that in-law thing going on, with them. So I think you have to realize that the heart is a very big place and we can love many people at different times.
Yeah, Frank, you were just practicing for Gloria. You were just
Well,
practice.
hey, I feel like the best is my last, so
There you go. Yeah, and you're gonna have all those daughters chasing after you if you hurt her, so I'm sure they threatened you if you first showed
oh,
up.
I do not want those 3 after me.
Oh, okay. I hear from clients too who've lost their husbands that they feel guilty wanting to be in another relationship. What do you have to say about that? It doesn't sound like you necessarily felt guilty because you were in another relationship pretty quickly, but What do you tell those women?
Actually, I did.
You did?
I
Okay.
did. Yeah, I had those feelings, and they would come up every so often, and it was like, "Oh, do I really love this person?" It's what is this? And I think you just question that inner depth of what am I doing? Where am I going? And also, and Frank said it too to me before, you have to learn to trust the person you're with too, you know, who they are, what they are. You have to gain trust. Yeah, it takes time. We were talking to someone this morning about it. I was saying to Frank, being in a new relationship, you just have to go with the flow. I'll have to say because you're so silly when you
You're a
first get
teenager
into it.
again, and that's
I don't
part
care how old you are.
of it, yeah.
You are so silly and you're in that excitement phase, and that might be where you might question, but you need to enjoy that phase. It's fun.
Yes.
I mean, get into it, get into the fun.
Well, it gets you out of your sweats, you start caring about what you look like, you start enjoying life, you start getting into life again, and, that's an exciting period, and your hormones are raging, and you're a teenager.
But it's interesting that I'm hearing you say your hormones are raging in your 80s because most people think, "What? You got, like, 1 foot in the grave." And Gloria, I know you there's none of your feet are even anywhere close to the grave. You're all about adventures.
Right, exactly. Well, there's that little gland in your head, people. It's called the amygdala. That's where everything happens. That's where your grief, your sorrow, your fun, your happiness, your sexuality. I mean, that little gland goes to work there, and it doesn't matter how old you are. It's
No.
still going because that's the gland also that makes you sad and makes you really hurt and all that kind of thing. It's your emotional center, and it doesn't matter how old you are. You've got an emotional center.
And so how does one navigate through that when they're in the deep grief and there's a part of them that feels like, "Okay, I don't wanna stay here, but I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to get out of it. Where do I go? How do I begin?"
Well, I think there's some practical things. Some of them are drink water.
Take
You
care of
know,
your body and
care of your
but
body.
don't let your health go, because health is everything,
Yeah.
and, you do not want to make that secondary. You wanna concentrate on your health and get yourself back into place, and it just takes time, and you've gotta be patient, and you've gotta realize that this is a natural process, and you can't rush it. Whatever your process is your process.
And, hopefully you won't be using alcohol a lot.
Yeah.
Some people do, and
It's not
and they'll
that.
say later that they're glad they stopped drinking, but maybe it got them through. I'm not here to judge anybody how stop and listen to yourself.
Mhm.
What's gonna help you get through it? What do you need to get through your day? I found, I'm not a big pill taker, but I found that sleeping pills, I did need to take them early on because I needed to get a full night's sleep after 5 days of not sleeping, then or having a good night's sleep, sometimes you just gotta.
Yeah.
You need
But you
to get the
do
sleep.
need to concentrate on your health and realize that, "Hey, I have to take care of myself, because there are people who depend on me." People
People die of grief. There's a research that shows that,
Mhm.
many men die after 2 years. And there's some question about, that they've been looking to recently about women getting breast cancer. I know there's some research being done on it right now after husbands have passed away. So, health is a huge important issue for you, and it doesn't do anybody any good for you to not to take care of yourself after
Absolutely.
you've had a loss. You really need to say, "Yes, you can help me. I'll reach out." Give people the gift of being able to help you. It's a gift to them, and look at it that way. Because I know a lot of us are independent. We wanna do it on our own. Sometimes you do have to let other people help you.
Well, and the whole broken heart syndrome is a real physiological medical thing, and that stems primarily, I think, from loneliness too.
Mhm.
Yes, loneliness is the number one mental health issue for people who are older.
Yeah, according to the Surgeon General.
Mhm.
We used to say back in the day, I started out in as a nurse, and, one of the things that we said, and this was, whoa, probably 50 years ago, we said high tech, high touch. That's when technology was just coming in. Now you think of all the technology in your hands and what we're doing now. Are you getting enough touch? Human touch.
Mhm. And most of us are not. Yes. We are.
Yep, we are.
Gloria, you said something so profound to me a while ago that's always stuck with me and I've used it a lot because you lost your son. Please tell us about him in a minute here. But the thing that was so incredible that you told me, so memorable, was I asked you one time, I said, is the pain the same when you lose a child as when you lose a spouse? And you said, the pain's always the worst.
Yeah. And I say that losing a child for me was like going to Mount Everest with no oxygen. I didn't know the trip. I didn't think I would live. And when my husband died, I m- it was like going to Mount Everest with oxygen. I knew two things. I knew that I would live and I knew that I could be happy again.
That's what stuck with me. You said it's always the first big loss is the worst,
Yeah.
because
The people.
after that, the other ones are painful, but you know you're gonna survive it.
Right. And you know you can be happy again.
Yeah.
And I never thought when Scott died that I would be able to do that. And I've talked to so many widows who are so crushed and widowers by the loss of that spouse, and they do have to take the trip. I mean, we don't have a choice.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Phil, and do you talk with Phil and Scott still? Do you talk with their spirits?
Oh, yeah.
You
Sometimes
find dimes all over the
we
place.
find dimes.
Who are
And
those from? Are they from the 2 of them, or
we have found so many dimes over the years, but I was thinking recently, I haven't found any dimes for a while, and I'm like thinking, I guess I don't need them right now. So I'm sure if I do, they'll be from either Scott or from Phil, but my family finds them too. The girls will find them.
Yes.
Frank's found
It's
some.
a standard statement
I
in the
mean,
family about finding dimes.
the places we found them on a golf cart path, in a helicopter in Alaska, on the ground of the helicopter. I mean, it's like these are not normal people things to find signs. So I love signs, and whenever I need a sign, I'll look for just everyday signs, even literally a sign or a pin or something that says "Be happy" or you know whatever. There's so many signs around if you just look for them and kind of believe. Because I know there's some people you couldn't get them to believe a sign if they had to.
yeah. Yeah.
So was a
Well,
little
and
skeptical, so are you a little?
A little.
well, he hangs around you long enough, that'll go by the wayside.
Changing,
Oh, I'm sure.
hanging
I'm
out with
sure.
her.
'Cause you just say, I always say, "You can't make this stuff up."
I know, I'll say to Frank, "Did you see that?" You can try to believe it, but
Well, and one of the things I love about you is that you're open to those signs, and you're not so set in, "It's gotta be this sign this way, and how this is how I'm gonna get it, and if it's anything else, it doesn't count," because then you just limit yourself. But you and I have talked about that it's that first thing that comes into your head. You find a dime and you're like, "Ah, thanks, Phil. Thanks, Scott." And pay attention to that. Most people just disregard that thought and they say, "Oh, it's just my imagination." Well, it's not. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree, and if you want signs, all you have to do is ask for them. And, we recently, went to hear Deepak Chopra at Canyon Ranch, and he said something which I thought was true. He said, "When you get on the higher spiritual vibrations of life, you'll find signs and you'll also see miracles."
Can you can you give us an example of a miracle that you've seen?
Oh my goodness, my car got fixed. This is it's a long story, but I went into a car wash and a car ran into my car and damaged the bumper right after, Phil died, and it was his car, actually. It was a little sports car, and I took it in and put it in the garage, and I called my friend up, and I said and my neighbor, and I talked to the woman. They called the woman back to hit the car, and she denied it, and there was this big thing, and I finally got upset and left, and I called and told my daughter about it, and then I called my friend, and she said, "Take a picture of it." and I've got a guy who'll come over and fix it at your house. So the next morning I got up and I went out to take a picture of the big dent in the car and it was gone. And I called my daughter and I said, "Can you come over and look at this because I need to take a picture of it and I can't find the dent in the car anymore." It was fairly large. So, about a few days later, she said, and then the dent was gone. And I'm like, "Okay, thank you, Phil. Your car got fixed." I went back to the car wash, kind of forgot about it. When I got back to the car wash, my daughter said, "I'm gonna go to the car wash with you." So she went to the car wash with me, and the car wash woman said, "You're back. Oh my gosh, what happened to you? We were so worried about your car being did you get it fixed?" She was on and on and on. She went out and looked at the car. My daughter went out. We're like, I don't know. That was a miracle for me.
Because he loved that car. So he didn't want you driving around in his car with a dent in it.
Then
No one's gonna mess with his car.
Yeah, I love it. There are well-meaning family and friends who often suggest waiting a year before thinking about another relationship. What are your thoughts on that?
my thoughts was I've told a million people that. How many people have you told that?
A lot.
That's what therapists love to tell you.
To wait a year?
There's therapy talk, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they told us to tell people. We were trained to tell people to wait for a year.
So do you
And
still believe that?
the reality is wait for
Some
a year.
people a year, some people have 2 years, some people have 5 years, and some people have 5 months. There's 5
Exactly.
days.
Exactly. I mean, I tell women, somebody will say to me, "Well, I'm dating this guy, but his wife died only 7 months ago or whatever." And I'm like, "Well, let me tell you something. Most men who are going to marry within the first 7 months
Really? After they're widowed?
after they're widowed."
Much sooner.
So
Yeah.
telling people to wait, you may miss a bet with somebody that would have been the delight of your life or whatever. My mother used to say, "If you want to remarry, carry soup to the sick wife." She observed a lot of people in her senior community. So, men tend to not wanna be alone.
Well, it prolongs their life. Statistics show that.
Yeah,
That it
exactly.
does.
Yeah, 7 years. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it
I
really does.
tease I tease my husband who's 10 years older than I am. I always say, "Honey, if I get hit by a Mack truck and you're left single," I said, "there gonna be Southern women lined up around the block, casserole in hand, wanting to come feed you."
Exactly, you're right.
And so he says, "No, they're not. I'd never get remarried." I said, "Yes, you will." And so if he tells me that he wants me to do something that I don't wanna do, I'll say, "Just ask your next wife, Miss Casserole, and she'll probably be happy to do it with you." He just rolls his eyes at me. Oh, yeah, it's so funny. What do you say to somebody that isn't confident that they can go through the whole dating scene again, and they don't even know where to start? What are your golden tips of wisdom that you can share with somebody about how do you even get started? And what
Well,
about the
in the
online dating, and how do you get the word out that you're interested?
yeah. One of the things that we talk about is that don't go into your head alone. Find yourself a dating buddy. Find yourself someone who is experienced and knows more about the dating process if you haven't been dating in a long, long time. You need to get friendships, you need to get relationships of people who are more experienced and take their suggestions and take their advice. And again, don't go into your head alone about this thing.
It's hard to stay in the game. I'm watching a lot of women, and I call it a game because, hey, it's fun.
It's got to be
Fun,
fun or you won't
it's
do it.
funny,
Yes.
it's exciting, it's
Sit
interesting.
sit around in pajamas and look at the profiles online and laugh and think of, "Oh my god, this guy would never do," or "This guy, wow, how hot he is,"
Look at
or
this
whatever.
picture or whatever.
Exactly. So you want to have fun with it. If it's not fun, you won't do it. You won't continue it
Yeah.
because it is work. I mean, if you're getting back into dating is a process and it's highly skilled now. It's different than when we were kids.
It takes some time, but it can be fun too. But I'll say this, once you sign up, once you go online now, we're saying get a dating buddy. I didn't have one, and I went online, and it worked out fine. You can do that. But I was lucky because I found somebody quickly. When you need through the process, it's gonna be probably longer, and you can use support of other people, girlfriends. But once you decide you wanna date and you're gonna do it, going online, you put that money in and you get interested, and you'll find out that you have friends that you didn't even know were dating, and they will tell you their stories of dating, and they will help you. Grandkids are great to help you get online. They can be your dating buddy. A therapist can start you online. There's some great therapists that can help you do that. However, your therapist or counselor is not gonna be there for you at 10 o'clock at night when you just had a great date and you wanna call somebody up and giggle about it, or a great meetup, or if you had a bad meetup and you wanna call them. So you wanna try to find a community. And I know some people do a little dating group or whatever, but once you sign up, it stimulates your little amygdala in your brain again. As Frank said, suddenly maybe you're putting more makeup on, you're
Getting out of your sweat.
out of your sweats, you're looking around when you go to the coffee shop to see who's there. You may be sitting at the bar rather than sitting at a table. Maybe you talk to the bartender, which you haven't done before. They're great people to introduce you to other people who are single around. There are people who will help you, but they need to know and that you are interested because they're not going to spend their time maybe saying, "Oh yeah, I know this guy down the street, you could I'd introduce you to him," and go to your class reunions, maybe go on hikes. I mean, there are other things to do, but online. But that being said, online is where you're going to find the most possibilities.
Yeah. You're gonna meet more people that you wouldn't normally meet, and that is a real asset. So online is really something that wasn't available when we were kids,
Right.
and it's available now, and it's a real help. I mean, but you do have to learn how to use it, and you have to use it wise. You've got to be a good consumer to make it work for you. So you've got to learn how to date online because it's a real process.
Yeah.
Some some women, I would say the majority of them say to me, "Oh, I just can't do the online thing. It's just not." One of my girlfriends that did it for a while online, she was a widow, and she said, "These guys need to get a professional photographer because 'cause they're taking pictures of themselves and they're so awful." She's like, "I don't know why anybody would go out. They'll take a picture of themselves in a mirror or something." She said, they're just horrible." And but women especially are so afraid to date online, I think because they've heard stories about scammers. And how do you discern whether somebody's legit or not? Do you have any points or golden nuggets of wisdom that you can share of, do you pick the same place to meet them? Do you meet them there? Do you give them your phone number? Do you not? How does all that work?
No, no phone number. Stay online.
The biggest thing is if you make a decision right from the very beginning, if you're going to go online, then under no circumstance do you ever give money to anyone online
For any reason.
for any reason. So
And that's
It-
all the scammers
that's all
want.
they want. So if you don't give money, you're not going to be scammed. I mean, so you just say, no, I'm not doing this under any circumstance, no matter. And you've got to be a little careful because people who text quite a bit, they can
Yeah.
fall in love with a fantasy. And once you fall in love with fantasy, then you're vulnerable to hearing the story and then maybe
Or
Hating it.
talking to him on 2 hours on the
Yeah.
phone.
I mean, there are some guys, really, and I had them in therapy, who really didn't want to meet anyone. They just wanted to have the simulation of talking to someone or texting someone.
And we have no idea what they're doing while they're talking to you.
Well, we have an idea, but we won't talk about it.
Well, and some of them may even be married. Yeah.
Some could be. So the thing is, you want to meet a person as soon as possible in person. You don't want to have a text relationship because you can get into a fantasy connection, and those are really powerful, and you've got to be careful because the old goal gets your best judgment sometimes if you really fall in love with someone online or in a text.
So you meet him as soon as possible. You meet him
And
at
no
a coffee shop or somewhere. You meet him for 15 minutes, a half hour. That's it.
because the thing that the person's after, usually the scammer, is money. You know, they're in it. If there's no money, there's no scam.
But besides, the scammers are usually in Nigeria or
Some other place.
people are like, oh, they'll be in my driveway. And no, they won't be in your driveway. They're from Nigeria.
Well, I've heard this story from more than one client about they've been involved with this guy for a year, and he's on a ship, and they're building something far away, and as soon as he gets back, that he needs some money to help him because the wires are down, and I'm like, "You're getting scammed." "No, no, he wouldn't do that." I go, "Oh, yeah, he's doing it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes these people, we have a friend who has been scammed a couple of times and she's doesn't listen to her kids or anybody else. I mean, really,
You think
you know,
once she would have learned a lesson, but no,
yeah.
there it happens.
But as I said, it's important to meet people in person as soon as possible and don't judge them too harshly. I mean, do the guys really have to be 6 feet tall? And do the women really have to weigh 120 pounds? And can you have a beard or what? Give people a chance to meet them in person if you think they have some qualities that you like. Now, I didn't like facial hair, and fortunately, Frank had shaved. So, if that can happen. I mean, had he put his picture on with facial hair, I
We may never have met.
know. So, give people a chance. When you sign up for these expensive programs where they match make, they won't let you see the pictures of the people they match make you with because of that, because we tend to be too judgmental. So,
Too visually oriented.
yeah, too visually oriented. So, meet them and make it, a 50
Yeah.
minutes or
You
whatever.
go on E-Verify or White Pages, or you can Google the person and find out information about them that's public record. So there's lots of ways of finding out about the person, but meeting them really early in the relationship is important so that you don't fall in love with the fantasy.
Yep, my son-in-law took Frank out. He's a lawyer, and he's also very involved in the legal system, so
Oh, I
we
knew.
he let us know that he didn't have a record.
Was he doing an FBI check on you, Frank, or something like that? Yeah. What do you say to women, especially? I hear because I work with way more women than men, and I think women feel more vulnerable. Is there somebody that you need to let know that you're gonna be meeting this person and where you're gonna meet them, and then you talk to them, you touch base with them afterwards just from a safety standpoint?
Well, that's great if a dating buddy.
Yeah, yeah.
My
And who
friend Bob,
pays? Who pays if you're going to dinner or something?
it's very interesting because it depends on what kind of a woman you are. Now, we have a friend who is a real estate agent, and she is in the book in several places. She has had more fun dating since we've known her. I mean, she has some great dates. She's had some really nice short-term relationships. They haven't been long, but she really enjoys herself. And when she wants to get a date, she goes online and looks around, and she's really enjoyed it. So I think you have to look from that point of view. But she dropped me off to meet Frank. And we just started talking. It'd been 2 hours, and she called me up and said, "I'm coming to pick you up." And I said, "No, you're not. I'm going over to Frank's to see his sculpture, and he'll drop me off home." So that probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, but I did know something about him,
But
you know?
she went on my website and she knew that I was legitimate. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine, but, I don't think it's like, "Oh, you have to do that," you know? If you're smart, my daughter had, dated a lot, and Heather, and she, used to have her friend call her
15 minutes
15
into it.
minutes into the date. And
So
if
that if
has
she
a-
needed to exit, she had someone call her.
she would say she had her kids at home or whatever. But let's talk though about turn downs. If you meet somebody, it's really nice to tell them that you're a nice person. I like you. I wish you luck. I don't think it's going to work out. So they don't keep calling you up. Or, I mean, some people give numbers, but so they don't think you're still a possibility.
How do you do that tactfully?
Yeah. To Frank, talk about.
Well, I think one of the things that I used to suggest to both men and women is that if you meet someone and you know that it's not going to work, you say, I really appreciate you coming out and taking the risk of, meeting someone and whatever. I know it takes a lot, took a lot for me, and I really appreciate you doing, but I don't want to waste your valuable time. And I want to let you know up front that I just don't think this would work for me. And I just want to let you know that so that you don't sit around wondering. Uh, and if you are interested in someone, one of the things that you would do is talk about activities that you both like. And then you ask the person if they would be interested in doing something, and you find out whether the person is interested in you.
Right.
So you can both ways, but the biggest thing is realize that you're doing a person a favor if you're honest with them, and you want to tell them you appreciate them taking the time, but you don't want to waste their valuable time.
Because I've had women tell me, oh, these guys keep bugging me. And I'm like, well, what did you say to them
Yeah.
when you
Let
left?
them know that that it wasn't going to work for you.
Yeah. And in 90% of the time, they have not said that.
You're actually doing the person a favor, and you're doing yourself a favor
Yeah.
by doing that, by being.
Back to the who pays. I think we got down a rabbit hole on
Who
that.
pays?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who pays?
Sandra, they always make the guys pay.
Yes.
She thinks
Well, she just thinks that it's a
That's
sign
what
of
guys
whether the
do.
person's
Yeah.
involved. Yeah,
that's her.
cares. Yeah.
I
So
think
that's a
about it.
criterion for her, and it was important to her. And so if the guy does not pay, it's the last time she sees him.
She doesn't want to go with a guy that doesn't pay.
No, she doesn't.
So that's her world.
Right.
So you have to decide what your world.
What your world is.
There are other women who feel like I don't want a guy paying for me. I can
Yeah.
pay my own way.
Exactly. It's really an individual thing.
You have to look into your own psyche and see.
And decide what's best for you.
What do you say to people who believe there's only one soulmate for each of us in each lifetime?
One soulmate in each lifetime.
Well, when you were in Rome in the early periods where you only lived to be 18 to 23, that probably was okay. But if you're going to live into your 80s, the chances are that something's going to happen, either divorce or a death, and you're going to have more than one relationship. So I think as we live longer and we have more experience, I think the likelihood of only having one person is probably not very likely.
When you think of the age of widowhood, average is 57.
Yes,
It's a lot of years on your own.
that's right.
And it's, yeah.
So multiple relationships and people who are long-lived is probably the norm, not the exception.
What's the average age of a widower?
It's older. It's 63, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's still pretty young.
Yeah.
Because I'm older than that now, and I think, well,
I think it might be 67.
Yeah, and with over half of the first marriages ending up in divorce, statistically, you're going to have more than one relationship.
You've got a lot of years to live, ladies.
And there's a lot of people that are very loving and very lovable.
Absolutely. Yeah. The heart can love a lot of people.
Yes, the heart's
and the divorced clients that I have, the women, some of them are just so shell-shocked from the divorce, and they feel so betrayed that they're just like, I'm not going to put myself out there again. What do you say to them?
Well, I say, honor the fact that you have to heal from that as you would if your spouse died, because it is the death of something that you had wanted. and something that you felt was going to be a long-term thing. And when it doesn't, it's a real disappointment. And you have to heal from that as you would the loss of a spouse. You've lost a love object. You lost someone who you cared about enough to get married to. And if you carried that much, there was a lot of investment in it, a lot of time. So if you grieve only the fact that your time was lost, and that it did end, you got to give that credence. You've got to give it as much as you would if your spouse had passed away.
But on that aspect, don't wait too long, though. I see women who have their kids with them now. That's another thing about seniors. I didn't have any children at home. You see people, I see ladies with children at home, and they say, "Well, I'll date after my children grow up." And don't wait.
Yeah.
You know, when you're ready to date, when you're ready to go out, do it. Do it now. When you're ready, when it feels right for you, do it.
What surprised you about finding love with each other?
Oh, I think that I was totally surprised that I could actually be totally in love with Frank, that I could totally be devoted to another person as I was devoted to my first husband. So I mean, it's pretty amazing what you can do, that you can love both at the same time. I still love Phil, and I can love Frank so fully. That's been a big surprise.
I was really surprised at this point in my life that I could find a love that's just so wonderful. It's so fulfilling. It was a surprise to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. What are the 4 stages of a relationship?
Oh, the 4 stages.
Yes.
Well, first of all, of a relationship, it's that romantic phase
Yes.
where you're crazy about each other and you're getting to know each other. And I think you kind of overlook the faults. Or you're not trying to find fault with people. You're just totally in love. And then you've got to, what, after that, look at the family, try to deal with that. Now you're in love. Now you've got to start to enlarge your circle a little bit and start to look at that.
And then once you end up finding yourself really connected, there are going to be issues that come up, and you're going to need to work through those issues and not ignore them.
Can you give us an example of something that was an issue perhaps that you guys worked
Was
through?
big.
Financial and where you're going to live, the Golden Bachelor and the Bachelorette, amazingly, they got married, and the issue that broke them up after 3 months was they hadn't worked out where they were going to live or could they live together. And so these are important issues. You also have to deal with relatives and friends and their opinions, and those are not necessarily all going to be favorable, or are they going to support you?
Yeah,
Going to lose some relationships.
you have to deal with health issues too as you get older. What are you going to do? What kind of support are you going to give each other? Like Frank had knee surgery, and I didn't want to take care of him, and he didn't want me to because we were worried about caregiver burnout, and we were fairly new in our relationship, and I didn't want to deal with that whole thing. So he got professional caregivers to take care of him, and I I left Arizona when he went in for surgery and went to California, and he came and met up with me after he recovered. And I would expect that my kids would help me and take care of me, if I had a big health issue. So I think you do have to talk about those kinds of things and what kind of health problems, because most people over the age of 60 have something going on, maybe even 50.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So money and health and, exactly how you're going to live your life. Because I had thought I went online, but the other option for me was, hey, I'll get myself into a senior community, and the numbers in a senior community are definitely in my favor. So I said, maybe it won't be so bad in a senior community. And so it was absolutely wonderful to meet Gloria and said, "Oh my gosh, I don't have to go into the senior community. I've got my senior right here with."
And you're going into the senior community anyway.
That's right, but we're going in together.
Now, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna live your life?
How are you going to live your life?
Well, and you're going into the senior community because of the activities, not because you need somebody to take care of you
No, at
No,
this
but
point.
a lot of senior communities, you have to go in healthy. So if you wait until you have some major physical problem, you might find yourself not able to find a community that will accept you.
Yeah. No, we're going in for play and fun, and
Yeah.
Frank calls it senior daycare. I mean, day camp. What do you call it?
Senior camp for seniors.
Yeah.
Summer camp for seniors.
Yeah, summer camp for seniors. I love that.
Gloria, tell us about introducing Frank to your girls and how all that went.
Oh my goodness. Well, after a couple of weeks, I mean, they knew I was dating him, but after a couple of weeks, I'm like, oh, I was doing a podcast with them for Open to Hope, our foundation. And we're always all on every Monday, all three of my girls and me. And I announced to them that I was going to get married after 2 weeks. And wow, my daughter decided she'd do an intervention and got everybody involved and really said, what are you doing? And she was very upset. And Frank had been doing therapy. I was at his house. He'd been doing therapy in his office. And he came in and I said, I don't know what to say. Why would you do this, mother? Why would you do it? And I said, well, I don't know what to say because I'm an ass. And then I said, well, here's Frank. Talk to him. He had his therapy hat on. So I loved what you said to Rebecca.
Yeah, I came in, I was still in therapy mode, and I said, "Well, Rebecca, what would you need for us to do? I mean, what is it that you want, and what is it that you need?" And and actually, it broke the whole thing.
Yeah, it's like, what do you need me to do? What
Yeah, what do you
for
need?
me?
Grill us.
And so she grilled him and
Yeah. I said, "Okay, you're right. We'll be willing to wait. I mean, it's certainly not a issue that we have to do. And so if you need us to wait, we can do that."
yeah. And so we did.
So 3 years later, we're still waiting.
No, they're actually very good now, but it takes time for people to
It
I thought it was just about money, frankly, that they, were worried that Frank was
did
a
answer
scammer,
and that.
that he was a scammer, but then I realized
It was really loyalty to
their dad.
father
I
that
really
they
didn't
do.
pick that piece up,
Yeah.
you know?
We both learned a lot about that,
Yeah.
and I think we've come to honor that, and I think by honoring it, it really has made it become a non-issue.
Yeah, I think so too, and I basically just said, "Look, your age, you know where you're gonna be in 10 years." I'm, what I was 81. I said, "10 years, I'll be 91. I don't know where I'll be." My life is short now, and plus it's your life anyway. I would say to anybody who's going through this, Frank and I were both therapists and we could talk about it and we kind of were copacetic about it. But I would say that you really need to be strong as a couple. That's the number one thing. If you wanna stand up to the family, you have got to be strong as a couple. You've gotta be dedicated and devoted to each other, and you've gotta stand as a unit
I had
going with the
one
family.
client, that came in, with his new wife, and he said, "You know what? I'm having so much trouble. My children, all 3 of them are not accepting my wife." And she was saying, "Well, I don't wanna cause a problem with your children, and, if indeed it doesn't, they will not accept me, maybe we need to dissolve the marriage." And I said to the 2 of them, "Well, maybe there is a way that we can work on this, but why give up a relationship where you both love one just because your kids are having an issue with that at the time?" And this was well before I met Gloria. And I actually worked with them. They stayed together. They took the time, and it really helped me with the situation with Gloria to have worked with this couple and realize that, you know what? Your kids are not always gonna like something that's good for you.
And they're maybe not gonna
They love you, and they care about you, and they want you to be well, but they don't necessarily want you to be in a relationship. And so you do have to understand that that's just a natural thing for these kids. And it doesn't mean they don't love you and don't want what's best for you, but sometimes you have to realize that, okay, it's their issue. It doesn't have to be your issue.
right. And it can come you need to settle these disputes early on because, I saw somebody recently, it had been 3 years and he and his wife, 2nd wife, decided to buy a house together, and the kids are having a fit over it. This is 3 years later.
Yeah.
So, you really need to look at these things about money and health and all that and
And understand that your grandkids will probably be more accepting than your children of a new relationship.
Why is that?
Well, they're not emotionally and they're invested in the same way that your kids are. And your kids are feeling disloyal to the spouse, either through divorce or through death. And so their loyalty is really there. The grandkids, they're a little more distant from that, and it's easier for them.
Yeah, they c they see it. In fact, my daughter, Rebecca, who did the intervention, was so upset. Her son said to her, "Oh, mom, why don't you leave her alone? She was married for 60 years. She likes being married."
Yeah, exactly. When my mother died, she died 4 years before my dad. My dad got reacquainted with a high school sweetheart who was a classmate of my mother's, and it was so funny because a couple months after my mother died, I was talking to him and he said, "Oh, I got the most beautiful sympathy card from this woman, who was classmate of your mom's." And I said, "Oh, great." And he's going on and on about this card. And I said, "Well, Dad, is she a poet? What did she say?" And he said, "She wrote, 'So sorry.'" I said, "That was it?" I said, "Dad, you are really looking for something here." So, anyways, my 3 siblings had a fit that he was dating her because he was like a teenager. He was so excited. She gave him a new lease on life, all of that, and they were saying, "Well, he needs to wait at least a year." I said, "He's 78 years old. What's he waiting for?" And so they got engaged, and I helped them with the ring and all that jazz, and my siblings got mad at me because I was encouraging him. And I said, "You bet I'm encouraging him because, how long is he gonna be around?" And,
Exactly.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
It was just I saw it firsthand how that worked. A couple more questions as we're winding down here. Let's talk about the boudoir. It's one thing that your kids didn't wanna read the chapter in the book about that, Gloria, but how do we navigate that if we're in a new relationship and we've been single for many years or we've been with a spouse who's passed for many years? How does one just manage that and navigate it?
Well, you might wanna get the book and read through the bedroom door. Then you might wanna think about some of the issues, and if it's hard for you to bring it up, you can give them the book and let them read through the bedroom door, that you can discuss together some of the issues of what sexuality means for them.
And how sexuality changes over time. And, for most men, infancy is an issue as they get older, either because of prostate problems or for other reasons. And so there's going to be an issue. So, how do you have a loving physical relationship if indeed empathy is one of the issues that might come up in a relationship, especially for men? A lot of men will avoid dating because of that issue, because I won't be able to perform, so why date? And I will tell you that there are many men that have learned to have a more loving, physical, sexual relationship without penetration.
Wow. Gloria, how about from the female side of the equation?
Well, we have dry vagina, we have things going on with us. You have to think about what you've liked in the past, what you haven't liked in the past, and you need to talk to your partner and then tell them what it is. Now, you can get very excited. I've seen with women in these early stages where you're I can't they called it widow's fire, I think,
Yes.
where because of the amygdala can get very excited and they can get into maybe some sexual activity on a level that they hadn't ever thought they would do, and you run into there could be an expectation that you're gonna continue at that level, and you may not want to, so you need to think about what it is you want in a relationship and what over the long term you're gonna have to keep talking about it. But we found with, a couple of couples we worked with that actually reading our book gave them an opportunity to get over that difficult thing of impotency and what the
The
book
big
said.
thing is being able to communicate and talk
Yeah.
about it, about what you need and what you want and what's possible.
That's a great suggestion. Just give them the book and say, "Hey." And do you find that there's a certainly it's gonna be subjective, but is there kind of a rule of thumb of not on the first date, back when I was dating, and certainly when you were dating, Gloria was like, "Well, she's a hussy. She went home with him on the first date," kind of a thing. Is there a rule of thumb that you wanna go out with somebody for a few months or a few weeks or a few years before you even get into that conversation, or does it just come up organically?
Well, I think one thing that guys need to know is that for many women, it's a big turnoff if they just want to get you to bed. And that's a lot of women complain about this. And,
Yeah,
you
very
need to
much
make it
so.
clear that,
And a lot of men, unfortunately, begin to feel like, well, if she will have a sexual connection with me, that means she must like me. And if she doesn't want to have a sexual connection with me, it means she doesn't like me. And that's not true at all. For men, especially, have a friendship, like one another, have fun with one another, and the rest will fall into place through conversation and real honest talk.
yeah, we had a friend of ours ended up dating this guy. They went horseback riding and all this kind of thing. And then after, I don't know how many dates that she had, maybe
A
4 or
couple,
5.
he was
He went
threatening
after,
her.
patted her on the butt and made some sexual comment, and she just said, it
Mm.
became clear to me at that time that really that's what he was going for. It wasn't gonna be a long-term relationship and ended
Yeah.
it. So but I think you do need to be clear about
You have to like
what.
one another.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I really like a friendship with you," before we get into,
Yeah, yeah.
and maybe that will break up your relationship, and, it.
But at least you find out what the person is interested in.
Mhm. Yeah, good point. Okay, Gloria, tell us about Open to Hope.
Oh, Open to Hope, was we started it after my son Scott, who was 17 years old, was killed in an automobile accident way back in 1983. With the advent of the internet, my family, including my husband, decided to start a foundation. Actually, somebody asked me to do a podcast for the Compassionate Friends. It wasn't a podcast, that was online radio 22 years ago, and they weren't even websites. And we started to do a podcast, Open to Hope. Now we have 3 million downloads, and we have a site, the Open to Hope Foundation. Everything's free. Our mission is helping people find hope after loss. Any kind of a loss you have, we don't even ask you for your email address. You come in, we have about 400 people that write for our site, just out of the goodness of their heart. We have lots of television shows, radio shows, I mean, podcasts, and they were online radio, and radio shows, and just a lot of heart there. And again, our mission is helping people find hope after loss. And I always end the podcast with, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own. Because I know when you've had a tremendous loss, it's hard to get through.
Yeah, you are such an earth angel with everything that you've done to help
Thank you.
all these families. My goodness, I just can't even begin to thank you on behalf of humanity for the work that you've done. And we met through the Helping Parents Heal organization, which also has just been doing wonderful things for parents who've lost a child.
Yeah, it's a wonderful organization, Helping Parents Heal, the Compassionate Friends. for widows. Soaring Spirits Foundation is an amazing online foundation, and the W Connection in New York. The internet's so great to find wonderful people out there trying to help people recover from grief, loss, and to go on to have a wonderful life.
Thank you for that. Last question for both of you. I'd love to hear each of your answers to this. Why do you think we incarnate?
Because we have spirits, and a spirit doesn't die.
That's a good one. Gloria?
I think that we learn compassion, love, and self-care, and we learn what a wonderful universe it is and how to take care of each other. And we need time to learn all those valuable lessons.
Beautifully said. Wow, she's a powerhouse. She's an extraordinary woman, Frank, and I'm so delighted to get to meet you. You scored with her, and it looks to me like she scored with you too. And I'm glad you have a golf handicap that that was acceptable to her.
Yeah,
Thank you for everything you do and for having us on the show.
Yeah,
thank you.
you bet. How can people learn more about you and your work and find the Open to Hope book?
The Golden Dating Doctors and
Tom.
yep, and opentohope.com. They're the best places to find us. We're on social media as the Golden Dating Doctors, and we're on all the little social media sites at
Instagram.
yeah, Instagram, Facebook Live, Facebook.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Thanks
All
to
righty.
grandchildren.
Well, I just am so thrilled for both of you and wish you all the best. And everybody that's over the age of what? They can relate with this, really over the age of 30. I mean, you
Honestly,
don't have to be 80 to be using these golden nuggets.
yeah, people have told us, even the younger couple of kids, that they've learned a lot from reading it.
Yeah, I bet. All righty, we've given you lots to think about. So send in your love from Sweet Home, Alabama, mwah, and from Arizona too, where Gloria and Frank are. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your family and friends.